Hey there, and welcome to the Weed Out, where we weed out the nonsense in our backyard and hopefully inspire you to look for the weeds in your backyard. I'm Spencer Fox Peterson here with my partner,
Hi, I'm Joanna May Booty. Hi, everybody.
and we're here to talk about abolitionist causes, abolitionist viewpoints and values. And today, unfortunately, we have some less than stellar news. We're talking about the Worcester Police Department under investigation for the usual suspects, racial profiling, improper police practices, and it seems to be focused around their minority community and in Worcester, whether they're the working class people or also people of color, working class specifically. And this is also on the heels of Springfield Police Department most recently agreeing to terms after a DOJ Department of Justice investigation finding all sorts of problems. So we're going to discuss that and hopefully lead on with some good news at the end, something a little more cheery. But Joanna, what are your thoughts on what's happening?
Well, I'm not surprised, which I don't think a lot of people who follow the policing in the state or locally. I know that Worcester's Central Mass technically, but because of the same oversight from the DOJ happening in Springfield and Worcester really only being not very far from all of us, like it's an hour drive for me about. So I think it's a place we really do keep an eye on. And I'm not surprised because at this summer I had seen a few things online and in the media about city councilors having issues with race, and I've seen different reports out of Worcester in the past where people were unhappy with policing. I know one other aspect was gender biased policing and excessive use of force were some of the things that they were being investigated for. And I think this will take some time because the time frame for Springfield's 2018 was when they announced that investigation. And I'll share an article that discusses that timeline too. And for Springfield, it was a little bit different. It was the Narcotics Bureau specifically. There was excessive force a number of times. And so there, it was really a pattern of excessive force specifically, and it was focusing on the Narcotics Bureau. Here in Worcester, it looks like it's the entire force. And the Worcester chief, Stephen Sargent, and the mayor have all said that they'll be, working with the DOJ, which I assume they really have no choice. But I think that in a way, like it's hard because it's police policing themselves, and I don't think that works. But I also, in some ways, I'm thinking this is kind of some good news for the people who are going through potentially negative situations. If someone is going to actually conduct a review and make sure that these things go into place, it's just hard to believe that will actually happen. I feel like it's good to point out too, and maybe so you agree with this or not, Spence, but I feel like if you get the DOJ involved, for Springfield, especially under the Trump administration, but if the DOJ is investigating you've done something so much, like so bad, like that, the feds are at least coming to be like, hey, stop it. Like, you can't blow this up for all of us. So I think it's good news, but I think I'm always torn because we've talked about this, and not on probably on one of the podcasts even in passing, but policing themselves is kind of.
I couldn't agree more. It's a mixed bag. Yeah, of course, any victim of these practices that can be proven, let's keep that in mind, like these things need to be proven, they can get recompense later on, they can get restitution. So some justice there, I guess, if that's what justice looks like to you. But that may be the only justice these people can get is money. And while not a bad thing to get money, doesn't bring back people's lives, doesn't bring back lost time in local jail, being held pre-trial, or whatever all the abuses. And yes, I agree with Joanna. If you're on the federal radar, there's a fucking problem, because we listen. If the FBI
I'm sorry to laugh.
speak out of pocket here, but so bear with me. This is an asterisk on this is a spending hot take, but like the FBI, who is credibly accused of aiding and abetting the death of Martin Luther King, if they're like, yo, I know that was 50 years ago, 60 years ago, but like, not much has changed. Some of those people have been working there a long time. And it's the nature. You've worked in workplaces. Things don't just change because you got a new boss. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, if Bill Barr of the Trump administration, who thinks that warrant, basically he's argued that warrants should be very like you should be able to get a warrant for anything, and in a lot of cases you don't even need to get a warrant. There's like, he's documented saying things like this. And so if his Justice Department is like, hey, Springfield, and this is like 2017 or 18, and I don't even think the investigation got started until 2019, so they tried to slow walk it. Anyways, yeah, if they're investigating you, it's not good, man. But it's the equivalent to HR coming down. Like, they're not actually there to protect the worker, they're there to protect the company. And yeah, they'll clean up some obvious mistakes and obvious issues, get rid of hopefully get rid of people really abusing their power, or at least shuffling them away. I mean, right? I mean, we could point to the Catholic Church being another hierarchy system like policing, where they look how they manage their crises. Why would the big entity of the FBI, DOJ, all the way down to local policing, who have a lot of money coming in every year, why would they jeopardize that? Right. This is just like anybody who manages a department in even in like a medium-sized company. It's like, well, you can't investigate yourself and shoot your brothers, your blue line brothers in the foot, and they lose money because they suck. So yeah, I mean, I think it's good because they'll probably get rid of the really egregious people, or out them, or at least end some really dumb practices. Like, they'll probably clean up a lot of record keeping issues, right? Like, and that kind of stuff. And it's basically like, this is how we keep a quote unquote well-running ship. Sounds good in a press release, but we know how documentation and how the system gets used. So it's like, I don't know how you can't really reform it. So let's be grateful there may be some restitution, some closure for victims of this stuff, but it's not going to stop it going forward. So that's kind of where I stand with it. And none of this stuff is shocking. I mean, there is clearly an issue in Worcester, and has been exemplified by counselors. I mean, they're having issues inter office between the people of color and the established white side of town. I don't know what else to call it. I mean, the established money. I mean, it feels like every town in Massachusetts has this kind of dynamic. I don't know. What do you think, Joanna?
I think you're completely right. And I actually have a quote from a city councilor, and there are people in the community that are actually happy this is happening, because Worcester City Councilor Christian King says institutional racism is real and we want to improve our community. So like, they're hoping this will help. And they wrote, we have to do it if all hands on deck, and they look forward and welcome this sort of probe. So it's mostly like gathering data that the community already has in place through the police department, and that will be the review. And another person, his name is David Fort, and I'll share the article that I'm looking at these quotes from, but he's a former member of the Worcester Board of Health. So that means he's been in the community for a while. He's worked with city council. He sees what's going on. And he's been a long advocate for a civilian board just to review the conduct at the Worcester Police Department level. And I think that people will probably still will want that, because it's definitely different than what the DOJ is going to do when you have your community members look at everything and decide on a plan together. But I think it's a start. If anything, okay, so David Fort, this former member from the Worcester Board of Health. He's quoted as saying, especially communities of color, the gay and lesbian community, and the poor community right now don't feel safe, and they do not trust the Worcester Police Department. My question is, what is it there to hide? Is there something going on here? And so that's why the Justice Department has showed up at the door, not even knocking on the door. They're inside the door. So, he's kind of saying like exactly what we're talking about. Like they see a problem at the federal level. So I do hope community members who may want this type of oversight in the future are allowed to form a community review board, because I know a lot of towns here in Western Mass have done that. I do find it helpful. It's a lot of work. And I guess it's not necessarily helpful in always changing what's happening in your town, but it definitely helps you to understand what's going on within the police communities in your neighborhoods and in your town. So I've looked at data in Montague. I've read the commission reports from Amherst and Northampton, towns that actually engage in these. You actually can talk a little bit more when it comes to budget time about what's going on, which is really nice. So it's at least not like, I don't feel like the time is lost, even though you necessarily don't have any outcomes that may change the course of what happens with the police out the gate. I think it's still necessary and informative for community members to get together and do this work. So I do hope, if it's something that's been asked for and advocated for a while, that the fact that the feds have come in will wake up the city councilors to maybe agree that the citizens should be able to develop this type of community advisory board. I think Springfield, I'm pretty positive, and I'll take a look and share what they have, but I do think they have a community advisory committee after, like, which again was probably most likely formed after the DOJ came in. Pretty bad, like almost,
It's probably there's probably money going missing, and they know there's like it's probably something with money laundering of some kind. Like I don't want to accuse anybody of a crime, but if I was a betting man, I would bet the feds got alerted because there was. I doubt they were super concerned about individuals being hurt. Like there's
right.
Not to, again, I know I like to go macro then back to small, but like follow me here. There's a reason the UN doesn't inspect our prisons, all right? Because we basically said we're not signing on to anything like that. And if you make us, y'all in for a world of hurt. And there's an actual act of legislation that pretty much says what I just said. Like we can't be inspected for war crimes on our own people. So looking to a higher power, like whether it's the feds, the UN, to come in and fix this, right? This is where I bring it back down micro. It's like we can't rely on them. We have to do it brick by brick. It has to be done. And civilian oversight ain't perfect either. Like we've met civilian oversight people that are bootlickers. Like
completely. That's why I'm not saying that that's an end all either. I agree.
The more somebody feels in it, specifically an entity, the more they feel like they're being watched, they may get slicker about certain shit, but maybe they'll stop doing the overt stuff. And like we can slow down the bleeding. Think of it like a tourniquet as opposed to, reconstructed surgery. We got to stop the bleeding first. So like any way we can put pressure on our local police, because we cannot count on the feds coming in or the UN or whoever. There's no higher power that will save us. We have to do it community by community. So that's why we like to highlight these stories, to make it seem real, because people feel like these egregious police misconduct things happen somewhere else. Right, Joanna?
I agree. No, and like this exactly. And this is happening in our own towns. And this is happening an hour away from us in Worcester. And I guess a breakdown that I found interesting about Worcester, Spence, was 23% of its population is Latino or Latinx or Hispanic, however that group may identify, and 13% are Black or African Americans. So compared to some towns in Massachusetts, Worcester has a large population of people who are not white. So I think that probably has a lot to do with what's going on as well, because the police tend to harm marginalized minority groups more often. And I didn't actually know that they had that high of population of either group of individual.
And it's a chicken or egg argument. Do the police create this? Is it poverty that creates the need for policing? Or, to me, it doesn't really matter where it comes from. It's happening. And I want everybody to remember that. And it's like, it's not how did we get here? It's like, we've always been here. And, you know, don't be shocked when it's happening in your backyard. Like, we hear rumblings. Joanna and I, who are we? We're nobodies, really. And we hear rumblings about shit.
Hey,
Yeah,
I
well,
agree. I agree or not, but
like there's a reason we don't break the stories because it's not, they're rumblings, right? So, but like because we are attuned to what's going on and we catch gossip here or there, and you know, gossip, take it or leave it. That's why you don't like it's disconcerting how often the narrative is the same, and it's to just different degrees of severity as far as police corruption, power, and that's why it's not about policing. It's about white supremacy, it's about colonizing, it's about imperialism, it's about hierarchy, right?
yeah, totally.
So they feel like heady constructs, but there's things we can see right here that are right here in front of us. Springfield, read up on it. There's, you know, just to get an idea of what they were accused of doing. And, you know, maybe even give a glance on the solutions to fix that problem. And you'll see that, like, it may not, it's just a different way of dealing with it, but it's not going to solve the inherent problem of policing. It's still the penalize. It's just cheaper and more efficient to go after poor people. It's why the IRS audits heavily the middle class, because they can, and they have a little money to bleed out of them. It's too complicated and too costly and too political to go after a billionaire. I don't know. It's as simple as that. So it's about power, it's about money, and this is the fruits of the labor, to the point where think of it as the FBI coming in and thinking like, you're fucking up the racket, dude. You got to toe the line better.
Basically, yeah.
So it's a victory in the sense it's like, well, they were so out of pocket that the FBI had to come in.
Well, that's the thing. They're doing such a bad job at hiding how bad they are, basically.
Investigate them. The DOJ people. The FBI is part of the DOJ, but sorry for conflating two. The DOJ is, you know,
is the investigate. Yes, they're the ones investigating.
Their civil unit or whatever, you know, civil department. Because there's civil rights issues, you know.
Yeah.
At play here. So like, I'm glad that we have that, and we didn't always have that department. So let's thank people in our past for even getting us something, a semblance of an arm of the government looking out for little people. So when they do, like, let's also just be like, let's remember, like, this is money working for the good in a very limited way. Very limited. I'm not putting, like, I'm the man who says, don't look to people above you, because they don't know what they're doing either. Doesn't mean you can't work with people, but, you know, don't look to somebody to come in. There's no God. There's no cavalry coming from, you know, I guess on the fascist side, it would be Mordor. From our side, it would be Rohan. Hurt alert.
Yeah, everybody.
Sorry, everybody with the Lord of the Rings. And anybody who's the Lord of the Rings fan would be like, that was a poor analogy. Anyways, so yeah, any more thoughts on what's going to happen, Joanna, before we
I guess
move?
I think for me, like, not necessarily what will happen, but like I said, the reason I'm not surprised is just we've seen things in the past, and they did do a racial equity audit of the town. The city councilors and some people were they put together a group and looked at overall, like, what's going on for people that work for the city overall. So this is before the DOJ came in, and I'll share a link to an article about it. I think the results came out at a meeting in September of this year. But they basically found that there's a lack of opportunity to advance people of color within the city overall, that there are pay disparities. And that's like within just like, it's a culture of resistance to change that's ingrained in the workforce, basically at like all levels of the city. So the acting mayor at the time when this came out, like, wants things to like move forward and be more equitable, but there obviously are issues because then in the last, I guess, week, as we've seen, the DOJ has kind of taken over as like to audit the police department. And I do agree with you that it's not perfect. Neither are oversight committees, but having anyone who does oversight or compliance who's focusing on ethics and harm is better than nothing, in my opinion, which you basically said. So I agree completely. I don't know what will happen with this other than I hope people in Worcester who are being harmed now, less of that happening, based on I'm sure that they'll develop like a consent decree like they did with Springfield, and then they'll have like I know a legal team kind of oversees how Springfield like makes sure to implement the changes suggested by the DOJ in their department. So I'm sure that something very similar is going to happen in Worcester. I just do hope the change is for the better. I know that it's kind of crazy of me in a way, not crazy, but I don't know what word to say, like not really what an abolitionist works towards. But I mean, I'm not able to completely halt the Worcester Police Department. I just hope that there's some relief for the community and that they're able to hopefully form these committees and oversight boards that they really have been hoping to put their, their own work in for, and usually it's unpaid work. So I would urge their mayor and their city councilors to listen to the community and let them do that.
Yeah, and let's also keep our eye on framing, because what can happen as a result of investigations like this? Policy suggestions will come up and it may increase the police state. That's what's happened every time there's been a major issue. Even seemingly logical things like body cameras, right? Giving police more tech, or maybe even leaning towards taking the technology, the decision even out of the individual human's hand and doing more AI policing to quote unquote make it more fair. AI has been proven to be very problematic, and we don't want that in policing at all. Imagine RoboCop, like that's like the Hollywood version of that, but we have robot dogs in Boston, that have shotgun, that have what was it, LA? I think they have a shotgun on it. It's crazy. It's weird. And this is what these
So weird.
things can lead to, and that's an extreme like sci-fi thing, but it's like it exists. Like I'm not really making it up. I mean, Boston has multiple of these things called stingrays, which is basically like fake cell towers to track people, so that it sends a ping and it doesn't do anything for your phone other than tell the police everything they need to know about you. And yeah, it's terrifying. And why does the Boston police have that? Like I don't understand. I don't care what is, but that seems like some tech that shouldn't exist. And then also just in general, like say body cams and dash cams, the way they train their officers to turn it into their advantage, like how they may talk a certain way with their body turn, or maybe they know how to disable the camera. Maybe there's like a policy like you can disable it here. Like there's really sneaky ways they subvert even the quote unquote things, and then let's even say you're on a body camera, you're intoxicated, and you admit to something. That's considered admissible as like a confession. This person is stressed out, they're dealing with a cop, and they happen to have a camera like eye level with them, right?
Well,
They put the cameras where they put them. Like sometimes,
agreed.
like the traffic cops put it right there in their belly,
Mm-hmm.
and it like skews. And like I don't know, there's a lawyer, Dana Goldblatt in Northampton, that there was a public meeting. We should actually find it and share it. Where remember she explained how even she used to be pro body cam, and then as a defense lawyer and a civil rights attorney, she realized how it's just getting used against you as creating like some evidence in a case that and it's like, this is not like fair or equitable. It's like it puts you on the spot as a civilian, and like dealing with cops is stressful. So you're on camera like looking uncomfortable. Like that's so incriminating and not fair and plays on juries. And I don't know. It's tough. It's tough because it's like we also want to see, but it's like, or they justify putting more cameras in a public place, and they can just have a guy in a booth monitoring, and it's like that's what happened in New York City while we lived there 10 years ago, and like New York City is a dystopia as far as how their policing is done. And the fact that a town like Holyoke is getting similar tech, like hand me down type shit now, 10 years later, it's like, motherfucker, we didn't learn. We didn't learn. We don't want to learn. It's just a cheap, easy solution. Police the motherfucker. Police the others, whatever that's decided is who they are. And usually it's poverty based. And let's face it, like poverty touches non-white people a lot more than it touches white people. So it all goes back to Bush and Karl Rove and the Patriot Act and all those ghouls. Like, you know what I mean? Like, here we are. And the Democrats have gone along with it, and so don't hero worship these people. And like, let's take this information we're getting from the Worcester PD. And, honestly, they might find some white nationalist extremism like the Oath Keepers or some other, the smaller group in the ranks there, and we'll see how they handle it, because there was a data leak where there's people from around Worcester that are involved in those, police officers are involved in those extremist groups. So progressive Massachusetts has a problem too. Like, we're not immune, and I hope this is reaching to our friends in the liberal pockets and the progressive spots. Like, these white nationalists are here and they're tied to law enforcement. Boston's had a bunch of Nazi marches recently. In the last 6 months, Joanna, like we've seen more white pride, white nationalists, outright Nazis, Proud Boys. We've seen them coming around in the Boston area from Cambridge all the way out to Wester Boston. And I don't know of any that's happened in like Holyoke, but I know there's people in Ludlow and Palmer that would love to demonstrate in Holyoke. Not to go off topic, but like it feels on topic because I feel like we might find out some of that stuff through the DOJ. Who knows? We'll see how they deal with that if they come across it. But it is something to be concerned about, and I don't know what to tell everybody listening. It's that's why Joanne and I are so fervent about this. We gotta stop the pain, and it doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah, I think a last point I want to make about just like the data in general, like they're using data that cops are generating too. So that's oftentimes like why I still would say we should request the data and look at what they're keeping, but how do we know what they're telling the truth or what their data, there's no set like oversight for that. So I just want to put that out there too.
Yeah, like, so you brought up in past episodes that you work for an internal review board.
Mm-hmm.
To our knowledge, they don't have anything like that anywhere in policing.
Yeah, like thankfully they're not allowed to do research. Thank God. But they should have like an ethics oversight committee for the way that they interact with humans, and like generally, in my opinion.
To my knowledge, they don't have
they don't have ethics oversight, I don't think.
Or even like a guiding, like the Fraternal Order of Police. I don't think that's like in their constitution.
Well, right, and it would require like a board like on like I wouldn't be swayed by the chief's opinion. Like I would look at them and just say like this is wrong and why, and like here's how we suggest change, which we should at least implement that. But again, we know we can't reform the system, and they would never like that. They would never allow it. They wouldn't like that they couldn't sway me to agree with why they need to do what they do, because I wouldn't know as someone who's not in charge of our safety. So I just want everyone to think about what safety means to you and how that's used against us as propaganda too.
Sure. And this makes me I have one final personal note. I want to go back to a previous episode where I brought up the concept of human nature. And I wanted to use this as a teaching point where to show you how baked in white supremacy is, even for somebody that's unlearned stuff. Resorting or bringing up argument voices, it's human nature. That is a white supremacy dog whistle. And it's so baked into our conscience because it implies a binary. There's a they and an us. There's human nature. This is the way things are supposed to be done. What else? Like, what else is human nature? Being a married person with 3 kids and having a nuclear family, even though that's only like that concept's only like 100 years old. That's not human nature.
Right.
So I just wanted to bring it up that, see, I even slip, and I'm trying really hard with speaking into a microphone not to accidentally use dog whistles, but I need to, use as a teaching moment to the people that are listening. Like, so consider the word, like the things we're saying to make our arguments. And what I would say is what I should have said about human nature, when there's a profit motive, when everything is profit driven, it brings out bad in people. But I don't think they're all evil, even the worst people. I see Donald Trump as a bad person, right? Evil, maybe, but like he was a damaged little baby too. So I see his humanity. Do I think he should have to be forced to become somebody that lives on Social Security? Kind of. That's me being petty. That's prison to him. Make him go to the grocery store for himself, like make him walk with his little stroller, with his little cart, like a New York City old lady, and make him live that way. Like, that to me is justice, but the justice for him looks different for other people. So, like, let's be careful about what, wanting to hand out justice, I guess. But I don't know. I just wanted to make that a teaching moment. So the more do.
I think it's important if we realize something after we say it to acknowledge it, even if we are unlearning or have unlearned things, because it is so baked in. Like, before we got on, I was sharing with you like how just like internal self-guilt can do that. So it's good to just share if we say the wrong thing or we have these things, it's fine. I think it's just good to explain why it's wrong to potentially have that be used. So thank you.
Yeah, and I want to address the, I know personally I've been told in my life, and the fact I'm talking to a microphone, that I come across as very confident. That's the nice way of putting it. And I also I want to own humility too. Like, I'm wrong, man. Sometimes I'm wrong, and sometimes I was confidently wrong, and I hate that about me. So I try not to be. I really do. It's like my biggest pet peeve. But yeah, it's just about harm reduction. That's like, so I want to make sure I'm even owning up to little minor things, like saying things like human nature. Like, dude, the dog whistles are deep in our culture. They're deep, 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 baked. So don't feel bad. Well, feel conscious, I guess, or woke. I guess you'd call it woke. Feel woke about it. I don't know. Just be
It's
conscious
just good
of.
to self-reflect on how we speak and act.
You can poke fun of me too,
Well,
please.
yeah, you could tell us if something we said that we didn't even know, that we'd want to know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and how we learn is learning, So hopefully, made you think about the next time you say human nature. So that's gonna do it for us this week, I guess. It's a good place to wrap it up, and we'll see you guys next time. And yeah, please read up on this Worcester and stuff, and subsequently Springfield, and then you can just Google search Holyoke Police and like look for actual newspapers that have put out articles, not their press releases. And it's not good there either, man.
And I'll share some stuff on the web, on the weedout.com too, with this episode. But yes, please take a look. Like Spence said, we'd really appreciate you checking out all of our social media and subscribing when you can too.
And go to our website because our citations are there. And if there's something you feel like could use clarification, please email us. It's all pretty easy to do. You can always go to one of our link trees in our social media profiles. Everything's there. Or you can go to our website, whatever. Engage with us. And thank you for listening. That's all I can say. I'm thankful for that. And tell your friends, small media is important, and encourage other people to create media. That's what you should do. And if they feel like they're showing that they may be interested in that, encourage them. And that's not the only way. That's not the only way to make the community better, but it's a way. So please do us a favor by liking, sharing, etc., and telling your friends. Word of mouth helps, and we appreciate y'all.
Take care, everybody. Stay warm.